Welcome to the End of the Bench podcast. Episode 5 is going to be the NBA Finals edition. As always, I got myself, Mr. Slaughter here. How you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Happy to see the Warriors still alive. I was sweating it out there for a little while, but it was an exciting series. Love that basketball game. So let's talk a little bit about the conference finals. To start off, we'll start Raptors Cavs. I think the Cavaliers, were the better team, but the Raptors deserve a ton of credit, especially after the first round series against the Pacers. I don't think any really gave them much of a chance to even beat the Heat, more or less take the Cavs 6 games, and in a couple of really dominant performances they had at home in games 3 and 4. So I think they deserve a lot of credit. Lowry and DeRozan really got it going and carried that team.
Yeah, I'm not sure they would have beaten the Heat had Whiteside not gotten hurt. But, the Game 4, is just very impressive. It seemed like the Cavs were kind of coasting through Game 3. But Game 4, I think they took a pretty good shot from the Cavs, and the Cavs battled back in that fourth quarter I'm not sure if they got all the way to a tie game, but it was like a 2 or
they took the lead by 1
game. Yeah, and the Raptors held them off, and they didn't fold like they had in a couple of the other games. They made their free throws, they executed, and they played good defense. So tip of the cap. I thought Dwayne Casey did all he could with the team in terms of making decisions about who was going to play and his rotations. I think he's at the very least proven a lot of the doubters wrong, that he is definitely a capable NBA coach, maybe not a top 10 or top 8 or something like that, but I think he's definitely a very, very good coach in this league, well above average. And you got to like the heart of the Raptors. They're not exceptionally talented up and down the board, but they fought hard, and I like to call them Rockets North with their Scola, Lowry, Patrick Patterson, crew going up there. But so I've always liked the Raptors, and it was nice to see them do well, and it was nice to see Toronto. I guess they root for the Bills, which is crappy, and then the Maple Leafs has been terrible. So it's nice to see that they have something good to cheer for. I guess they got the Blue Jays last year as well, but it was more fun than I expected it to be.
Yeah, I think you're definitely touched and hit the nail right on the head with the Casey thing. He's going to get rewarded with a contract extension now. Both sides want to get one signed, and I think he definitely earned it with his coaching throughout the playoffs and specifically in that series. I think it's something for them to build off of. They're going to, for a team that hadn't advanced past the first round, to push the Cavs to 6 as much as it didn't feel like they really pushed them per se. That's a big step for them, and it's only something for them to grow there. Fortunately, they're going to have to pay Bismack Biyombo a little bit more next year to keep that unit intact if they want to grow like that, even if he's willing to take a quote-unquote hometown discount for a team he's only played for 1 year. But I think this is a big building block for them, and I think they'll be able to springboard themselves next year going into the season with some more confidence if they bring back a similar roster. And just give them more confidence coming into the playoffs next year that they can compete with a team like the Cavs who've caused them problems.
I'm a little more skeptical of their outlook than you are. I think I'm not sure how much the team can improve. It's not like they have a lot of young guys. They have Norm Powell, I guess, and if Biyombo comes back, Biyombo. But I'm not really sure that Biyombo is going to be back, and I just don't see a ton of a room for improvement. And part of that is their cap situation with with DeRozan, if he's going to come back or leave. If he comes back, I think they're pretty maxed out on potential. If he leaves and they can somehow fill it with someone similar, or not someone similar, but someone of like max-ish talent, like maybe a Horford or something like that.
What about an Allen Crabbe, something like that?
Yeah, an Allen Crabbe would be interesting. I'm not sure that he puts them over the top, but I think that they could use that shooting for sure in the starting lineup. With Carroll being healthier next year, I think they really have a hole at the power forward position. As much Scola's just not super good anymore, and Patrick Patterson's he's fine, he's a good player, but he's like right at your average level starter, maybe even a bit below average. So they have some holes. but yeah, I mean, they should probably still win 50 games in the East. I think that they could potentially be better without DeRozan, and then still have a worse record next year. Just because I think they kind of overachieved this year. I feel the same way about Portland, who I think have a better team next year, but have a worse record, just because I feel like they have a lot of regression to the mean coming.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you on both those issues there. Definitely the power forward slot, and Toronto's going to be a need they have to fill, whether they do it through the draft or free agency. But they should be fun going forward. It's always going to be fun, especially along with the Blazers. You mentioned Horford. Those are the two teams that I think are going to go after him the most, right? So we can get to free agency a little bit later. That'll be a podcast for a different time.
Absolutely.
It'll be a fun one to have. So let's talk about Western Conference Finals. OKC played probably the best basketball we've seen him play since the James Harden trade against the Spurs and the Warriors. Took the Warriors to 3-1, and then ended up with a chance to close them out in Game 6, 5 minutes left. Had a lead on them, and then Klay Thompson went supernova. And I didn't think they had much of a chance. I felt pretty confident with the game going back to Oracle that the Warriors had figured enough out on defense. They made basically their effort level compared to games 3 and 4 and 5, 6, and 7. And I don't necessarily agree with the HP's take that basketball hasn't been fun this season because the Warriors have been so good. I think greatness is fun to watch. That's just a personal opinion of mine. I enjoyed Larry Bird tapes as a kid. I enjoyed LeBron James, and I enjoyed the Golden State Warriors season this year. And it just seemed like that. But his take that they make all the shots is kind of held true in games 5, 6, and 7. They were able to knock down the looks they were getting in 3 and 4, and they found something defensively. I know that's what you kind of thought the series came down to, especially in Game 7. They just locked in defensively. But as far as the Thunder, Russell Westbrook had a great games 3 and 4. Then we kind of saw the bad Russell Westbrook poke his head out. Not necessarily bad. He played well, but defensively he's a little bit of a liability, especially in a series where he's got to guard Steph Curry. And then Kevin Durant. I thought he played a great first half in Game 7, let the game come to him, and tried to be aggressive late, but he just really couldn't get it going. What were your thoughts on that game, on that series as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, you can't give enough credit to how Klay Thompson sustained them, through Game 6 and really the first half of Game 7. Curry had like a little mini barrage there in the first quarter, but it was really Klay's play in the first 2 quarters that I think kept them in the game, because it kind of looked like a rerun of Game 6 at the beginning. I was kind of half right, I guess. I thought that Golden State wouldn't figure it out offensively, and they didn't. But on defense, you're right. I mean, Iguodala played incredible defense, and he played like 45 minutes, basically just guarding KD in Game 7. He really played an excellent fourth quarter against KD in Game 6, and I think that was the difference. It was interesting because I kind of feel like players like KD and Harden are a little tricky for Iguodala, who likes to use his hands, and KD and Harden are very good at kind of mitigating that with how they play. But KD just couldn't fool him, and Andre played very not conservatively, but just very sound, and that's exactly what the Warriors needed. Westbrook, and this is going to be the thing with him, is that he can be very good, but in fourth quarters, when the game slows down and he has to play a half-court game, he's just not a very good half-court offensive player. He had a lot of assists in this series, but he had to set the record for turnovers in a series. And on defense, he was, like he is on offense. He's very hit or miss. He can get you some steals, and he can lock in on certain possessions, and on other possessions, he lollygags around and really gets lost on those switches. And I think what doesn't get talked enough, especially for a player like Westbrook, it's not the physicalness of the Warriors. I think it's the mental, wear and tear that you have to have, that every play you have to be focused on the switches and on who you're guarding. So, it was just, I think it just wore on him as the series went along. But, and I think after this series, there's no way KD's going to leave. I was listening to some of the quotes and stuff from the Warriors. And, it seems like the first time you do something, and they were there in 2012 and they went to the finals and they were like, oh man, like, they were all so young. They're like, oh, we'll be back and all this. And then to get this close again a second time, I really think it's going to be frustrating for them, and I think that'll really make everyone work hard. And I don't see how KD is going to leave a situation where everyone seems to have like a chip on their shoulder and a mission, if you will. So I think that he'll end up staying. I think it's like I'd almost say it's like a 90% chance that he stays, probably higher.
Yeah, just touching on the Klay Thompson thing. You say he kept him in the game the first 2 quarters, and shot out 0 for 7 in that game. He missed his first 7 shots and then caught fire at the end of the second quarter is the only reason they were in the game going into halftime. He's probably been the MVP. Definitely of the Warriors, maybe of the playoffs, LeBron James has been equally good, but they're definitely neck and neck there. And the KD thing, I got to imagine he's signing at least a 1 year, with an opt-out after that, and then he can see what Russell Westbrook's going to do. His comments, we've watched the superstar leave. We watched the LeBron James 2010 departure, and his comments in the post-game after that loss to the Celtics seemed completely different than what we heard from Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant sounded like a guy that, I'm not saying LeBron didn't love his teammates, but everything Kevin Durant said was about comforting his teammates, being there for them. It had a completely different feel to it. So I got to imagine he's not going to leave, and I don't want him to leave. I would love to see this Oklahoma City Thunder team stay together. They are young. Steven Adams is probably the best emerging young center in the NBA right now. Unfortunately for him, he just had an unlucky night. Stephen Clay went 8 of 8 against him in that game, and 6 of 6 on pretty much pull-up threes, which is unfair. It just hadn't happened to him the rest of the series, so that was to the point where Donovan felt like he had to pull him. We could talk about that in a different time. I want this team to stay together. I think the Warriors, if they stay together and stay this hot and this good, and the Thunder could be a really fun rivalry to watch for the next 3, 4, 5 years, because both teams' cores are relatively young, and it could be a lot of fun. But yeah, I definitely can't see Durant leaving this year. If he does, I'd be pretty surprised.
And I think, again, similar with Casey, Donovan proved himself to be a very adequate coach. The mistake that he made, I don't know if you'll agree with me on this, but is that, and it seems like in Game 7 they didn't push the pace at all, even when they were winning in the first half. I mean, they I think in game it was like Game 4, they had there was 112 possessions or something. They had 58 at halftime or 62 at halftime. It was something crazy. And so, they were just pushing the pace, and they were just running the Warriors out the gym. And the Warriors were still missing the shots. They just weren't pushing it. And I have to go back and watch and see if there was a better job at them getting back. But it just seemed like, they were content to play more half court, which I thought was a mistake. And then I'm not sure if it's a Donovan problem or a Thunder construct problem with how they handle the end of game situations. I don't know what to say there, but on the defensive end, he did something and unlocked something that I don't think that the Thunder have ever had. So I thought that was exceptional for a first-year coach to be able to pull that out.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Definitely in the pace thing. I felt like they let the Warriors dictate the pace of Game 7 when they had been at their best when that series was outrunning the Warriors, and outpacing them. And it didn't seem like they tried to, force the issue there as much in Game 7. Even though, like you said, Warriors were missing shots, they had opportunities. I did think being there, the Warriors made a more concerted effort to get back on defense and stop those transition efforts. But I still feel like with Russell Westbrook, that never stops him. He doesn't care how many guys are in the lane, right? He's going at the bucket.
Right. And I felt like, they weren't even pushing the ball. When they're fine, you get cut off to the basket and you circle around, you bring it back, but they weren't even doing it. They were just walking it up the court. I mean, it seemed like him and Waiters were pushing it even when they didn't have numbers and it was working. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting Game 7 pace-wise. They kind of let the Warriors dictate the pace of the game, especially made it a half-court game. And what we know from experience with the Thunder is that they are not in their best in half court situations, and that the Warriors can out execute you if they need to. So I thought that hard to like Game 7, but they deserve to be commended. They've timed great regular season team in the Spurs and pushed one to 7 games. Billy Donovan got better. I feel like they unlocked some things on defense. And hopefully Kevin Durant does stick around like we think he will next year, because that team's going to come in with a chip on their shoulder and be a lot of fun to watch again.
Yep.
Moving on to the NBA. Moving on to the NBA Finals. We got the Warriors and the Cavs rematch of last year. What are your thoughts, early thoughts going into the series? Not just Game 1 specifically, but overall.
I think it's an interesting battle. I think there are some things that are similar to what the Thunder did that the Cavs need to do. But I think that at this point the Cavs are just a vastly superior offensive team to what the Thunder were, and really, I think it's kind of hard to take stats from them from this playoffs because of the level of competition has been so much different. But they're still averaging a 119 offensive rating against teams that were above 500. Which seems pretty ridiculous considering I think the Warriors had the best offensive rating this year, and it was like a 113 or something like that. So yeah, that's pretty insane. I think that I'm not sure there will be a lot of points, but I think there will be a lot of good offense in the series. Cavs and Warriors are first and second in field goal percentage and true shooting percentage for the playoffs. And the Warriors and Cavs are first and second in assists for the playoffs. So both teams love to move the ball. I don't think the Warriors have faced a team that has moved the ball as well as the Cavs have in the playoffs. And, I think that their games in December and January are not going to be indicative. Cavs are playing significantly better. And I'm not sure that the Warriors are playing as well as they were back then, whether due to Steph's injury or, just it seems they're just not quite hitting on that cylinder. So I think that'll be interesting. In the pace, I think it will be interesting as well. The Cavs so far have a 91 pace, and the Warriors are at a 101 pace. So we'll see who wins out, and if the Warriors feel comfortable going slow, or if the Cavs feel comfortable being more up and down. What do you think will be interesting?
Well, I'm worried about my voice. I can barely speak right now. And if the Warriors have to go another 7 games, there will be irreparable damage to my vocal cords. I'm genuinely worried about that. I think that Tyronn Lue saying that the Cavs wanted to push the pace in the series. Did you see his comment? He said that they were going to push the pace in the series. I can't tell if that was a little bit of gamesmanship. I hope it was, because if not, I think he's going to be going on vacation a little bit earlier than he plans to if they try to run with the Warriors. I think ultimately they're moving the ball better in the half court, so I think hopefully they'll play the same sort of slow down pace they did last year, but with more offensive movement and less standing around watching LeBron James work. He's been great, but last year he couldn't lead them even when he was getting single covered to a finals championship. And I think that Golden State would have to guard him similarly, because they can't leave more shooters than what the Warriors had last year. I definitely think you got to throw the regular season out. Channing Frye has really come on strong. Richard Jefferson's throwing it back. And I think they're clicking better than they've ever clicked, and it looks like they're having the most fun playing together they've ever played. Kevin Love, for the first 2 series, was an incredible, having an incredible playoffs, and then unfortunately had some Raptors. Couldn't really get it going there, but he was incredible in the first 2 rounds. My difference, I think, in the series is that the Cavs and Warriors have both been able to create about 48% of their looks as open and wide open opportunities, and have both shot around 50% on those field goal attempts. The difference, I think, is going to come in this series, that the Cavs have not played a defense that has been as effective as the Warriors have in this playoffs. Mm-hmm. The Cavs are holding opponents in the playoffs so far to negative 4.3% against their expected field goal percentage on similar attempts. On the flip side of that, the Cavs are allowing 0.7% higher on their field goal attempts. And I think this just probably is an effort issue, which the Cavs could solve. The Warriors have contested the third most shots per game of any team in the playoffs, and the Cavs are the second worst. That's a difference of like 13 shots per game that get contested. So I think those numbers that are so even right now in open and wide open looks, so they're shooting similar percentages on, will change in this series based on effort level on defense. And I think the Cavs are going to have to bring that same energy and intensity that the Warriors do on defense in order to keep the Warriors from getting those looks, because the Warriors just make all the shots. And if you give them that many open looks, eventually they're going to make you pay, is what the Thunder found out.
I think that some of that, I imagine, Tyronn Lue seems to have had a good game plan for every series. In the Pistons series, I'd be interested in the breakdown for the past few series, but I feel like in the first series, they were just like letting the Pistons like shoot outside, and then the Pistons like made them in the first game, like whatever. But I'd be curious because they were just like clamping down on the pick and roll. And they were just like, let's stop Reggie Jackson, let's stop the lob to Drummond, and we'll see, from there. But I'd be interested to see how much of that is like a game plan thing, or how much is just the Cavs just aren't good at defense. It's probably more of the Cavs not being good at defense, but I do think that there is some game planning in there. So I mean, I think controlling the pace, controlling the possession. I don't even know if pace is the right word, just controlling the possession. The Cavs are only turning the ball over 11 times a game. Yeah. Warriors are like 14 and a half. So, I mean, part of that is due to the Cavs pace, but I mean, they're averaging, a little more assists than the Warriors, or a little under. I think they're like one assist off. It's like 25 to 24, but they're only averaging 11 turnovers, which is remarkable. Just ball control from them. And they're going to need to keep that up to stop the Warriors from running. Rebounding, similarly to the OKC series, Cavs are rebounding at a 53.7%, which is second to OKC's 54.6%, and the Cavs are getting 80.7% of the defensive rebounds, which is the most in the playoffs. Some of that I think is due to the Hawks sucking at rebounding, but I also think that the Cavs are very good at rebounding. Maybe not quite to the Thunder level, but very similar. And I just think controlling possession, and that starts with rebounding and not turning the ball over, is going to help the Cavs stop the fast breaks, maintain possession, and keep the pace where they're at.
Yeah, I think Golden State has to focus on rebounding and turnovers, much like the Oklahoma City series. That was when things turned. That was part of the reason things turned around in Game 7. OKC killed them on the glass in the first half. On the offensive end specifically, and it was only able to grab one offensive rebound in the entire second half, which when you can grab rebounds, you can get out and run and get those transition looks for Steph and Clay. I am interested to see how much the death lineup gets played for the Warriors. They kind of had to go away from it there in the middle of that series. It just wasn't effective. It was a minus 1.4 rating against the Thunder in that series overall. But against the Cavs in the regular season, it was a +6. And I think this is a series where you can bring it back. I'm not as Thompson on the glass as I am of Steven Adams, putting Draymond Green on him. And I'm not as afraid. I probably am more afraid of Kevin Love on the boards, but he tends to stretch more. So I think they can get more out of maybe it's not a death lineup anymore. Somebody figured it out. So I think we probably have to come up with a new name for it. I think Stephen Curry, people are gonna talk a lot about Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving on defense, and that's well warranted. You can put those guys in pick and rolls, and they're gonna have to step up. Kevin Love's gonna get ISO'd by Stephen Curry. They're gonna have to figure out a way to trap. They'll probably trap him off pick and rolls, I would assume, because you don't want to have to switch Kevin Love on Stephen Curry, and I don't think Kyrie Irving can really do the job either. Mm-hmm. But the question is for the Warriors, if you want Klay Thompson on Kyrie Irving or J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith's a taller guy. He's a really good shooter. You can't hide him on somebody like they did Roberson, who hurt them in some games, but later in the series did not. So really, is Steph Curry going to be able to handle the defensive load? I'm not dismissing him like Russell Westbrook did, but I think that's another big question. There's questions on defense for both teams, Stephen Curry for the Warriors and Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving for the Cavaliers.
I'm actually less concerned about Steph in this series because I don't think he's gonna get like out rebounded by like whenever they put him on Roberson. You know,
Yeah.
he's not gonna be guarding someone flying in there. I think ideally whenever Shumpert's in the game, they'll have him on him. But I
Mhm.
think that the Warriors are gonna be more than content if, you know, J.R. Smith like wants to post up or go off the dribble or whatever. Like that's not the Cavs' best offense. So I think that they'll end up. I don't know if they'll start out like that, but I think Clay ends up guarding Kyrie for a lot of the series. And I'm not really sure that Clay can because, you know, with Westbrook, you can kind of force him into the shot, but Clay's going to have to do a lot more on defense, I think, that in this series.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. And I agree with you about the death lineup. One thing that I think is fascinating, you know, we talk about players maximizing their utility. And I think that in this series, LeBron's potential is not maximized because the Warriors don't have like a wing that's just like super awesome and that like LeBron can just go out and play defense on him. I guess that person
Yeah.
could be Clay, but Clay's so different because he's like running off these screens. He's not, you know, not like a ball handler. And so I think that, you know, LeBron's defense is somewhat minimized in this series. Unless they go LeBron at the 5 to counter the death lineup, which I hope happens because that would be an insane like game if it did.
Oh, it'd be so much fun to watch.
And I think one thing that will be interesting is if, you know, this whole flagrant foul thing with Draymond. That would be a shame if he had to miss a game because of you know, him being Draymond.
Did I sense sarcasm in your voice there?
No, I mean it would be kind of a disservice to the people. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing it, but you know, I think we all want to see a fair series. But, you know, I think going to the death lineup minimizes the rebounding effect of the Cavs, especially if they're going to play LeBron at the 5, because then they'll be like really, really small. One thing I do think that it will be interesting is I think that Tristan Thompson is a little better apt to handle the death lineup than Serge Ibaka was, because you don't really need a shot blocker. You need someone that can move their feet, and I think Thompson is a little better footwork on defense than Ibaka does. Ibaka kind of relies on his length a little too much for me against the Warriors, so I think that'll be interesting. You know, he was like the same way that he played Millsap, you know, in the Hawks, being able to switch and do that kind of stuff. I think it's very similarly here. He'll have a strong series.
I think Thompson is probably one of the better big men in the NBA at moving his feet. He's very adept in switching into guards. He does a decent job on Teague as well, who is incredibly quick off the dribble. So I think you're right there. I think he also causes more problems than Serge Ibaka does on the offensive glass. Ibaka is he's a so-so rebounder in my opinion, because he's a lot of the time, and it's not necessarily his fault. It's a lot that they have him, you know, floating on the perimeter because he's a good spot up shooter, kind of like the Kevin Love situation. Kevin Love's an elite rebounder, but he's floating around the perimeter a lot. I'd like to see, and it's selfish, but I like to see LeBron James on Stephen Curry a little bit, maybe put Kyrie Irving on Harrison Barnes. If Steph really gets going, I would much rather watch the Warriors dump the ball into Harrison Barnes and let him post up Kyrie Irving for offense, as opposed to letting Steph play on the perimeter and kind of dictate how the game goes. So it'd be interesting, a la 2011, LeBron James taking that personal battle with Derrick Rose and really focusing on locking him down when the Heat needed him to. I think that's not going to happen, especially since it didn't happen last year. But the Cavs have more weapons defensively, more at their disposal. So it could be something they try. Probably wouldn't be till at least game 2 in the series. Game 1's probably going to be, we talked about this, more of a feeling out process, just to see what the other coach is going to try, going to do. And then we'll see a lot of more adjustments and get a real feel of how the series is going to go, probably more in game 2.
Yeah, I think that with given their offensive weapons this year, LeBron, they might feel that his energy can be expended more on defense than last year. True. So, you know, maybe they'll have stretches where he sticks Steph, especially with Kyrie in the game, or, you know, whenever Dellavedova is not in the game. You know, Dellavedova is, you know, okay on defense, but the thing he does great is he just doesn't get lost.
Yeah, he's great at fighting through screens.
He's good at fighting through screens, and he's good at like sticking to their man. Like whenever like you'll get those kick out offensive rebound threes, like he's very good at just not getting sucked into that madness. So it'll be interesting. And I also kind of wonder if you can play Kyrie and Deladova together in some stretches, because they don't really have a strong like two guard. I guess they have Shumpert, but we'll see. I think one interesting thing is the Cavs are significantly deeper than the Thunder. Like the Thunder were basically rolling out like six guys. And the Cavs, they're going to play with Fry, they're going to play Shumpert, and they're going to play Deladova. They're very good 8 deep. And I think so you can hopefully conserve some energy from some of your bigger players going that way. I think that the real problem is the Cavs cannot play all of their best players at the same time against the Warriors' best lineup. And I think that's probably what's going to win out in this series through and through. And I think that's going to be shown, more often than not.
Yeah, their 3 highest paid players' best position is power forward. It makes it hard to put, your best 5 out on the floor. I guess their best 5 probably in the playoffs would be Kyrie, LeBron, Love, Thompson, and Fry, right? I mean, those are probably the 5 guys that are playing the best. Can you imagine that lineup trying to go out and play against the Warriors' small lineup? That might actually be kind of fun to watch. I'm interested to see how playable Channing Frye is. Their offensive rating is through the roof when he's on the court, but I think you almost have to stagger his minutes against Steph if you want him to be effective, because I think, as well as Tristan Thompson moves his feet on defense, Channing Frye is probably the opposite at this point. I think Stephen Curry, what do you say, barbecue chicken when a big man switches onto him, especially for Channing Frye. That'd be tough for him. So I think it's just tough for the Cavs because all of their big men, it's kind of the opposite of what it was with the Thunder. The Thunder, a lot of that was game plan, but their big men were really good at preventing Curry from getting good looks early in that series. They were not getting sucked back in for the step back jumpers that he tends to get big man sucked into. He was getting a shoulder past him, and they were kind of just content to funnel him to the rim to the next guy and not let it. And that was what was forcing a lot of those tough looks. But I just worry about Cleveland's big men being able to stay with him on the perimeter. So I imagine a lot of their game plan will be not switching as much as the Thunders were switching out on the perimeter.
Yeah, I agree. I ultimately think the Cavs, I think, are going to have to go with their starting lineup against the death lineup. And I mean, if I was Lou, I think you just got to be bold and you got to say, Kyrie, you're guarding Barnes, and Love, you're guarding Iguodala, and you're just going to be like, and you're just like, let them shoot if they're going to shoot, but or maybe even put Love on. You put Love on Barnes and Irving on Iguodala or something like that, because Barnes is a little better post-up player, and Love can kind of handle that better. But I mean, I think it's something like that to get all your best players on the court. Ultimately, I think is what they're going to have to do and be bold, and you should at least try it to see if it works at some point.
Yeah.
You kind of use game one as the thought experiment for how you're going to attack it. The Cavs do have some options, but like you said, it's going to be tough. Fry is going to can only play probably, honestly, when Ezeli's in the game. I think Spates is even an okay pick and pop defender. He's not really a good pick and roll defender, but I think he can get out there and do it. But if Ezeli's out there, who seems to have lost some trust in Curry, he's making a lot of weird mistakes throughout the series. But that's whenever Fry is going to have his maximum potential, and I think Lou's just going to have to maximize those opportunities, because they're just going to need them, because I'm just not sure that they're going to have that many lineup advantages over the Warriors.
Yeah, I agree. I'm interested in the Spates comment, because I feel like he tends to lose his man on defense, and that could open up opportunities for Fry. We'll see. I'm sure it'll be a matchup we get to see at some point as the two coaches try different things. You're definitely right about Ezeli. It's like he's trying to play at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Last night, we were actually playing a soccer game, and somebody made a pass to no one just because they thought somebody was going to be there, and somebody yelled out, "Hey, you're passing the ball like Festus Ezeli," because he's made good plays to get offensive rebounds, but it's like as soon as he gets the ball, his arms are doing something before he missed Curry wide open in the corner. You're talking about those kickback threes, and he ended up throwing the ball to no one.
Yep.
So I don't know that we'll see a lot of him in to get an Andy V revenge game at some point after that crossover he had on in the game 7.
Cantor.
That was pretty funny. Yeah, it was Cantor, wasn't it? I was going to say that, but I wasn't 100% sure. Of course it was Cantor.
It was.
But yeah, it'd be a really fun series to watch. I think matchups will be interesting, like you said, see if Cavs can get their best players out there and if they can be effective against what we're assuming is going to be a lot of small Warriors basketball. It'd be fun. A lot of the talk's going to be LeBron James, Stephen Curry, but I think those guys will be great regardless. I guess that's the last thing we should probably talk about is I think the moment's not going to be too big for Stephen Curry. He finally, regardless of what media wants to say, looks like, to me, he's 100%. He's effective. If you're putting your jersey in your mouth, celebrating a win and jumping up and down and screaming, as far as I'm concerned, you're LeBron James was emotional after the Eastern Conference Finals. I think he really grasps what it means for him to be here for the 6th straight year and the opportunity he's got. He's carrying a lot with the city of Cleveland on his back, probably more so than Stephen Curry is with the Warriors. But I think it's going to come down to the role players. Those guys are going to be great. Klay Thompson, like I said, has probably been one of the 2 MVPs of the playoffs so far. Kyrie Irving's been unbelievable scoring the basketball. So if you had to pick somebody outside of Kyrie and Steph and LeBron, that's really going to have the biggest impact on this series, who would you think it's going to be?
I think it'll be Love. I think it'll be whether he has the ability to stay on the floor, because if he does, then I think that just makes the Cavs that much better. And if he can't, then I think the Cavs they'll have some answers, but they just won't be nearly their peak is just going to be significantly, their ceiling is just going to be significantly lower if he can't play. And so I think that he probably isn't going to change the series, but if the Cavs are going to win, I think Love has to be able to show that he can stay on the floor. But I think Iguodala is the guy for the Warriors because I think he's the best defender for LeBron, and they have a couple guys that they can throw at him. But Iggy showed that he can do it last year. He showed that he guarded Durant well. I think he's the X factor for the Warriors and helping them secure their back-to-back championship.
You took Kevin Love out of my mouth. That's who I would say for the Cavs when he plays well. They tend to play really well as well. I think it's Klay Thompson. He's been the best player for the Warriors in the playoffs. I know Steph gets all the press, but if he continues to shoot the ball the way he does and he can play reasonably close to the same effectiveness of defense on Kyrie Irving they did on Russell Westbrook, I really think that the Cavs out of the series because Kyrie's going to have to be pretty special offensively, I think. So I guess last question for the podcast. You got a prediction for the series? What do you think is going to happen?
I do, but I have 2 things I want to say.
All right, go ahead.
That I hope happen. One,
by all means,
I hope we get some just bizarre quarter where Klay and J.R. Smith combine for 16 3-pointers, and
I think everybody wants that.
It's just nuts. And then I kind of hope for the same for we get a 25-point combined quarter between Channing Frye and Maurice Spates. I think both of those would just be phenomenally entertaining.
I know you follow him on Twitter, but I don't know if you get Shea Serrano's newsletter he sends out, and he had a section of this newsletter he sent out this last Tuesday, and it's called Catch These, and then it's Blessings or Hands. And so one of his things he said is that he would love, he thinks that Draymond Green and Matthew Dellavedova will be going at each other with lead pipes.
That's another one.
By game 3, and then I think I saw it retweeted, and they said something to the effect of that Draymond Green and Dellavedova have already been proactively suspended for games 2, 4, and 6 of the final series for their antics. So I think it'd be fun if we got another Draymond Dellavedova wrestling match if we're going to throw out our wish lists.
Yeah, that's definitely a third.
That one would be a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely. But as far as a prediction goes, I think Warriors will win in 6. But if I'm putting money on it, I think the best line is Warriors in 5. It has a lot of value. It's plus 800 or something. I think that would be if I was betting, I think I would throw Warriors in 5 for that. And Klay Thompson's plus 425 on the MVP.
Yeah,
I would do that.
Crazy.
I would do that too.
For all you degenerates out there.
Yeah, exactly.
You watch the podcast, we're throwing you out some bets to make that we may or may not both be making. Selfishly, I want Cavs in 5 because I didn't get to celebrate it on the home, or sorry, Warriors in 5 because I didn't get to celebrate it on the home floor last year. I think that'd be a lot of fun to. It was fun enough to watch a game 7, and it might actually not top that if it's in 5 and watch that win. That was a lot of fun. So I think it'd be fun to watch an NBA Finals victory in person and kind of be there for that whole ceremony. It's really fun to watch on TV, so I think it'd be fun in person. But I think I'm probably with you. I've got too much respect for LeBron James. If he can drag the roster he had last 6 games against the Warriors, and I got to imagine he can at least do that this year, get the same sort of impact out of him. And I think if Kevin Love's effective, like we said, and he can stay on the floor because he's good enough defensively in this series, and I think they can push him to 7. I do not believe in doubting LeBron James, regardless of what people like to say about his NBA Finals record. He's one of the best players to ever play the game, so I'm going to give him some respect. But ultimately, I'll say Warriors in 6.
All right, well, we're on the same page, I guess.
That's always fun when we can be on the same page when it comes to talking sports. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. There's a chance if we get a really good series, we could be back in the middle of this, maybe talking about some adjustments that have been made if the Cavs show us something. If not, we'll be back for some NBA Finals analysis on why we think the series went the way it did. Jonathan, nice talking to you, my man.
Absolutely. Take it easy out there in the sunny California.
I'll do my best. It's 65 and sunny the next 3 weeks, so I'm going to be struggling out here. I take it easy, man.
Yeah.